It's Christmas Eve, and we're sticking with the holiday theme. Well, kind of. We're airing our grievances on this day. Stay with us.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen. Today and every day, we are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase.
All right, welcome in. It is Christmas Eve. Connor Happer here from 1620 The Zone, Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. So we'll say this out front. We missed this already. We should have done this yesterday, but we're starting to look back at the year. It's almost a year in review. I will say this, Mitch, in years past, we've had a much easier time slipping into this kind of season because the season has been over. The season is not over for Nebraska right now. So it's almost, there's still another game to play, or there's one more game in 2024, which feels like it's 2025. It sort of makes it very confusing. Nebraska has a bowl game on Saturday in New York still. That's still happening, right?
It is still happening. The Huskers are in New York. They went on Monday. They practiced at the New York Giants facility. Matt Rule gave a little speech to the team about his days with the New York Giants. He called them champions, which somewhat applicable if you talk about Rule's time with the Giants. I think some people dressed as elves last night. Huskers got their bowl swag. It's like,
love it.
It's like 1999 all over again.
I saw a bunch of social media videos from various Nebraska football players out and about in the city.
Yeah, they got an evening in New York.
Yeah, taking the subway, hanging out in Times Square. There was a lot going on last night. So Nebraska's in New York.
Some of the rural farm boys, I'm sure that was quite the experience for.
Yeah, I would assume that a lot of people just stayed in the hotel, and maybe some went out. So
I hope they didn't go out and see the city.
I agree.
You're
Christmas on a boat trip
in New York.
It's a little bit different, but okay. So we'll still have plenty more on that game coming up throughout the remainder of this week, before Mitch heads off to New York, or while Mitch heads off to New York. But we'll take a look back at 2024 kind of today, and we'll do it in our own way. I'm sure that there are better ways to look back on 2024 than this, but let's set it up this way. We are both fans of the 90s sitcom Seinfeld, Mitch. I've come to learn, as most white dudes are, I think. Yeah.
It's just more like a passing enjoyment. I wasn't like deep into it when it was going on, but like just like the pop culture allure of it in the afterglow has been more what has captured me.
All the episodes are on Netflix now. And so you could check them out. They're like 22 minutes. If you haven't heard of Seinfeld, you better probably wake up.
This audience does skew young, especially on YouTube, but come on,
Okay. So the show introduced a holiday to America called Festivus. It's a holiday as described by the show that occurs every year on the day before Christmas Eve, so the 23rd. And it's created by, in the show, great visionary Frank Constanza.
And I mean, it's perfectly appropriate this week with his association with the New York Yankees, who put on this beautiful pinstripe bowl.
That's true. George is a Yankee. So Frank created this holiday as an alternative to the pressures of commercialism around the holidays. It consists of a couple staples: the airing of grievances, which we're about to have on the show, when Frank famously says, "I got a lot of problems with you people," and then starts listing them off at the dinner table.
Frank is George's dad, so he was not associated with the Yankees, but George, of course, was.
Yeah, right. So it makes sense. The Feats of Strength, which actually features a wrestling match at the dinner table, which we will not have on this podcast, but there were some feats of strength for Nebraska athletics during the year. And then there were some Festivus miracles, which I don't think we could really make into a podcast segment, so we're going to skip that. There's also a poll involved, which once again, for purposes of this podcast, we will be ignoring.
I mean, if you want to have a wrestling match at your dinner today, since it's Christmas Eve, I would strongly encourage that, and for you to let us know how that goes.
So let us begin with the airing of grievances. It could be anything. You could just be like, whatever it might be from this. The coffee didn't taste very good.
Mm-hmm.
The airing of grievances. It's something that everybody needs every once in a while. Just let it all out. I got a lot of problems with you people. And whatever it might be from 2024 or beyond. And by the way, this is a great opportunity for people to sound off in the comments as well. Leave a comment. What are some of the things that bothered you this year about whatever it might be? So, Mitch, I don't know where are we starting here? Where are we airing our grievances first?
Well, should we start keep it? We're going to go off the rails, but should we start with just a football thing to begin with? I think we should. I mean, this is a football show. I think we should start with football. So, why don't you lead us off with how you feel about what Nebraska did this year in structuring its offensive leadership?
Okay. It's more about what they didn't do. I can't believe that Nebraska did not make an offensive coordinator change before this season started. It cost them several games. It cost them a whole bunch of angst in the meantime. And what Nebraska's offense was the beginning of the year wasn't horrendous, but then once it started to face tougher competition and the book was sort of out, it was pretty clear. They made that change, and so maybe that's one of the feats of strength that they had this year, and that we could talk about. But it's when you look back on it, it's really a baffling decision that Nebraska didn't make a move and gear up its offense this year for Dylan Raiola, or for for the weapons that they had, because they had them. They had a pretty good offense with pretty good talent. And it was not put in the best position to succeed at the beginning of the season.
It was a true disservice, I would say. And Nebraska's fortunate that it was able to pull off what it did in November and go find a top-of-the-line offensive coordinator who, if things were right, if the situation had been presented correctly, I'm convinced Nebraska could have landed before the season. It had to be the right situation. He did come, Dana Holgorsen, and visit Nebraska way back in January and talk to Matt Rule about the possibility of something, and it didn't work out, and Rule wasn't ready yet for a change. Well, he was ready in November because he had to be ready then, and Nebraska's fortunate that it was able to pull that off. You don't just make an offensive coordinator change and bring somebody in from the outside in November and keep your top offensive players together and then sign that coordinator to a long-term deal. So while we have a grievance with the way this was handled, they made it work in the end, but it cost them, because instead of being 6-6, if they had a competently run offense through the entire season, I'm convinced it would have been more like 8-4 or even 9-3.
I was going to say, Mitch, who knows how much it cost them? It at least a couple wins probably, and then you start to do the math on it, and Nebraska's schedule was not particularly difficult this year. There was opportunities even with the offense the way it was. So it's hard to apply it to specific instances in individual games, but looking broadly, yeah, I mean, Nebraska had one of the worst offenses in the country for the majority of the season this year, and the stats sort of back that up. It got really, really, really bad. And now it has ticked up at the end of the season. So credit to them for making the move, but it definitely cost them here in 2024.
All right. I have a grievance that you brought up, and I agree. What the hell, Trev Alberts? What are you doing? It's March. Everything. Yeah, I mean, it's not perfect. The world's not perfect around you. There are issues at Nebraska. There's problems with the power structure, with the leadership. There's meddling that's going on, but you don't just leave for Texas A&M in the middle of the run to the NCAA basketball tournament, and your football team's putting things back together. And yeah, there's been a lot of revisionist history, and this was the best thing for Nebraska because now they're on the same page with NIL, and it all works so much better with Troy Dan. Fine. Trev, it was his job to get that stuff right, and he bailed. For Texas A&M. Come on.
He bailed 100%, right? He was, and not to mention, I mean, this could be a grievance as well. Nebraska and the whole stadium project thing, which is now almost back, it feels like, to what they were going to do,
tearing down the South again.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be gone for a second. Yeah. That was Trev's project. That was Trev's baby, and he was making progress on it. And they were set to demolish South Stadium at the end of this year on the original plan, right? I think that was
going down. It would have been going down right now.
Yeah,
the bulldozers would be out there. Yeah,
they really could have, started that project, and now it's delayed. And so that was Trev's thing. And yes, what the hell, Trev, is a really great statement to throw at him. I got a lot of problems with you people. And by you people, I mean Trev Alberts in this case. All right, so we have many more grievances to air. I have a couple more football related. We have some bigger picture. We have some day-to-day stuff that we're going to air as well. Maybe we could get to a feat of strength or two that Nebraska had this year.
I don't know. I think that the grievances are going to take us through the entire show. That may have to be a different episode.
All right, cool. We'll continue on a Festivus edition of the Locked On Nebraska podcast next. All right, it's Happer here for the FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. There are no shortage of options for you in the FanDuel Sportsbook, whether you are betting in the weekend, betting actually on Christmas, that's an option for you, whatever you want to do. Or, you could go inside the game as well. We're talking about player props. We're talking about overs and unders. We're talking about anytime touchdown scorers and first time touchdown scorers and same game parlays. The options are endless. I have no airing of grievances about the FanDuel Sportsbook. The FanDuel Sportsbook is a feat of strength in and of itself. Head to FanDuel.com and join today. FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Okay, we're back for the second segment of this edition of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. I'm Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone in Omaha is with me. It is Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas to everyone out there. Happy holidays. Hope you're all getting to enjoy some great time with family. We are airing grievances so far on this show. There is a scheduled opportunity for us to talk about feats of strength here, but there are plenty of grievances that we've got, and we've been through Trev Alberts. We've been through the handling of the Nebraska offensive coordinator situation so far. I want to go a little bit different direction off the rails. Connor, I think many of our listeners are probably getting us today as they're doing some traveling, moving around to go see family, whatever you do over the holiday season. I was traveling over the last weekend, went to the college football playoff game in Columbus, Ohio, the NCAA volleyball semifinals and finals in Louisville, Kentucky, and I'll be off to New York on Friday. So this brings me to a grievance that we can just cover very quickly, not necessarily Nebraska football related, but I'm just tired of people who don't take care of themselves when they're traveling. So yesterday I'm on the plane, United Airlines, and there are a couple of ladies in front of me in the aisle or in a row. And I think one of them actually had like whooping cough or croup or something like that. Man, it was just brutal. Like, put on something, like cough into your sleeve. You're sneezing all over the plane. It was just disgusting. Like, I wanted to move to a different part of the plane. If you're traveling this week and you're sick, like, do something to take care of yourself.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm with you on this completely. And I don't want to be the guy who looks at the person and is like, why are you sick? Like, stop.
Drink some water, something.
But it happens all the time everywhere. And like, whether you're in the store or whether you're at work, like there's always somebody who's just ripping through a cough. It's like, just take a drink of water, settle, like try and get yourself healthy, but why is there constant coughing all the time? Stop coughing.
The unhappy traveler in front of me, and we'll get past this quickly. It was as if she did not know she was coughing. Like she was in the middle of a conversation with her travel companion, and then it was like hack, just everything. I'm not a germaphobe, but this was just crossing the line. This is what you get with travel over the holiday season. Like I think it was actually contagious within the flight. Like I started to notice other people like behind me and on the sides of me who were coughing too. Like they were, like if you yawn, like the people around you tend to then yawn also. That was going on. It was a somewhat miserable experience for the hour and a half that I was on this plane as a result. So if you're out there traveling today or whenever you're listening to this show, I'm sorry. It can be tough this time of year. I see American Airlines was completely down this morning. We could do a grievance on that kind of stuff. Like, how do you let your airline get hacked by like some 14-year-old in North Carolina or whatever this one was about? Nice. Don't do that. Like, have better security. You're American Airlines, you're United Airlines. Thank you.
Yeah, a great take and a great airing of a grievance. It's the sound for me. It's not really the germs; it's the sound. It's just
right.
It's constant. It's unrelenting. It's horrendous. All right.
Yeah.
I have a football one that might lead into a bigger picture football grievance here. I'm still mad. I'm still mad. I cannot get over the fact that Nebraska football completely no-showed at Indiana this year.
Yeah.
They lost 56-7. They got completely boat raced. There was a moment in the first quarter where you thought, oh, well, they might win, or they might come back here, or they might do no. And they were completely
for like 30 seconds
by ineptitude on defense, ineptitude on offense. That team is not like super talented. They won 11 football games this year. And now, as a result of that, Nebraska had to be used as a Curt Cignetti prop in a college game day hype speech, like he was a WWE wrestler or something like that. We beat the crap out of ranked teams. Nebraska was not ranked when they played Indiana. And the other game that he referenced in his whole deal was when they beat Coastal Carolina like a decade ago when he was at James Madison. This is it was at least like 4 or 5 years ago. Like Curt Cignetti, you don't beat ranked teams. You beat Nebraska and Coastal Carolina. I'm just embarrassed that Nebraska had to be a Curt Cignetti thing that he used in one of his stupid, WWE wrestling reels that he does.
At the end of this, that might be one of the more sadder pictures and like unfortunate representations of how far Nebraska football fell in this era, that it was used, as you said, as a prop in lifting up Curt Cignetti, who, give him credit, National Coach of the Year, but he got bounced in the first round of the playoff, a playoff that Nebraska would have given its collective left arm and maybe its right arm to even sniff this year or next year or the year after that. But I'm with you. The Indiana game was a complete embarrassment in really every way. Don't forget special teams, which was an embarrassment at times more than the Indiana game this year. How do you get multiple kicks blocked in more than one game? We're not even talking about Indiana right there.
Great question.
That's a different grievance. But yeah, Indiana. And should we parlay this conversation into talking about a grievance that involves Indiana beyond the Nebraska game?
Absolutely. You got to set this one up because I have so many. It's for me, it's like the discourse about the playoff. I guess that would be my grievance.
Yeah. Okay. So we can't get into all of it, but as you heard over the past few days in the wake of the first round games, people have big issues with these games being lopsided. So there's a grievance that isn't my main grievance with the College Football Playoff Committee that has this bizarre way of seeding the teams where even the broadcasters, as they roll out the rankings, and it's like, here's the rankings, And now here's their seeds. So there's two different numbers by teams. Like for the first several weeks that was going on, like no one understood like what they were really doing. Oh, you're ranked 10th, but you're the 3 seed. Like what, Boise's getting a bye? Okay, fine. Like what it led to were 4 lopsided games in the first round. And you might have some lopsided games in the upcoming quarterfinals on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. You also got these crazy conversations last week around Indiana and how it didn't belong in the playoffs and how wins don't matter. And you can't look at teams' records when you are determining this stuff. Like, I guess it should just all be determined in August based on their preseason rankings. Like, let me just ask Kirk Herbstreit and those who share his views, if you put Indiana in Michigan's uniforms and everything else was exactly the same, you beat Nebraska 56-7, you lost at Ohio State by 20 points, but that was your only loss. You took care of business. You finished 11-1. Would there be anything even remotely resembling a conversation as to whether that team belonged in the playoffs? No, it was all because they're the Indiana Hoosiers. So get out of here with that kind of conversation. And while we're at it, let's just seed the playoffs, the 12-team playoff on who the best 4 teams are and give the 4 best team buys no matter what they did in their conference.
A reminder, by the way, why Alabama's not in the college football playoff, because they lost to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma.
Yeah. And they lost to Tennessee, which got beaten down at Ohio State. That was the largest margin of victory in the first weekend of playoff games, the Ohio State-Tennessee game, not the Indiana game, which was the smallest margin of victory among the 4 losers to come out of the first weekend.
We have more, believe it or not, we have more grievances to air. We could actually do this the entire week, I think, if you wanted to. We'll continue on the Locked On Nebraska podcast next.
All right, I want to tell you a bit about Gametime. Basketball season is here, and Gametime makes getting tickets to basketball games so much easier. You want to see a Big Ten game in person? Nebraska won last night at Hawaii while you were sleeping. How about a Big East game if that's your thing? St. John's coming into the CHI Health Center on New Year's Eve. Gametime can get you in the arena. It offers tickets for concerts, shows, not just sports. Check out the feature of the Gametime app called Gametime Picks. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of options. Gametime allows you to customize your spot in the arena. I love that you can get curated deals to make it easier to find the best price on great seats. Gametime provides seat views before you buy. It's got the super deal, a unique feature that you need to examine. You get the picture. Understand, Gametime is the way to go. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the Gametime app today. What time is it? Gametime.
All right, welcome back. Our final segment are once again sincere thanks to you all for listening to this thing daily. We have been welcomed into the YouTube / like podcast space. We're pretty familiar with it, but like us together, this is a new thing. It's been awesome this year. What a year of growth and starting for us. We can't wait for 2025.
If you have grievances with us, let us know. If you're watching on YouTube, let us know your grievances. Do you not like the way that we look, the way that we talk, what our takes are? Sometimes we get those in the YouTube comments. I would love to hear them as a result of what we're doing on the show, or you can send them to us on Twitter.
Okay, so a couple more. So do we want to build off of obviously there was so much horrible discourse about the playoff. So then we take it further beyond that, and we look at the NCAA now. I mean, generally, I have a lot of problems with the NCAA, but now it has proven itself to be completely spineless. Eligibility is fake. There's no rules whatsoever. NIL, the transfer portal, guys can leave and wherever they want, whenever and wherever they want. There are absolutely no rules, to the point where I don't know what's going to happen next. So that's a grievance.
Yeah, we have like 10 minutes left in this show. And if we go down that road of talking about the transfer portal, like we could do an hour easy with the grievances on that and how there are no rules and what the rules should be. But I think we should devote an episode in January or sometime soon to going into like some things, some ways that they could fix the portal. I have some ideas about the calendar and how it could be different in college football. I spent some time discussing this with my good friend and colleague Scott Docterman while at the Horseshoe on Saturday night. So I think just in general, the portal is ridiculous in the way that it's set up. Not that you can transfer; you should be able to transfer if you're a college student. Coaches can leave. Why not? It's the methodology, it's the way, it's the structure of all of this that is just poorly planned and horribly thought out and makes the lives of coaches and players and parents and media and everybody just kind of a mess for months of the year. My grievance with the NCAA is this. They continue to act like they're in charge when they absolutely are not. If you have an issue with them, just sue them. Like the NCAA is making stuff up as they go along at this point. It's a downhill slide. They are an 18-wheeler and the brakes have come off going down a mountain right now.
Yeah, you will win, by the way. If you're trying to get eligibility back, just be like, take the Diego Pavia playbook and just say, hey, look, I could have made $1 million more had I had this extra year of eligibility and you took it away from me because I spent it in junior college. So I would like to sue you. You will win. You will win every single time.
I have a quick grievance that is not NCAA or transfer portal related that I just want to stick in here before we get back to talking about some Nebraska football. Well, this is Nebraska football. I have a grievance with people who believed here this fall that Matt Rule's wife, Julie, was pregnant.
So you really have a grievance with Facebook, I think. I think you have a grievance with Facebook.
I do. It may have been on other forms of social media. I saw it in several places on Facebook and was just like, what is this? And then Rule says in a December press conference that while he and his wife, Julie, were out at various events, eating meals, shopping, tending to her business, whatever it might be, that every day she was approached by morons who congratulated her on being pregnant.
Oh, my God.
So
I did not hear Rule say that. That is
yes. It took this conversation to a new level. That's why I'm bringing it up. Like, I wouldn't have brought it up if he didn't bring it up himself, because I don't want to lend exposure to this ridiculously stupid storyline that she would be 4 weeks pregnant at age 50 and announce it in some way on Facebook. No, she's not. It was a ridiculous, click engagement farming, stupid AI social media ploy. And you fell for it.
Internet literacy. That is what your grievance is. Internet. Just don't be afraid. And I know, people say clickbait and maybe people are afraid to click on the actual thing. You should actually click it and then read it and then consider the source and see if it's just make sure you believe that before you start telling all your friends in email chains or whatever it might be.
Just in general, have the ability when you're on the internet to think critically about this and other subjects. So if you fell for that, my advice to you is to log off social media. You are not ready to handle what social media is telling you.
Good take. Just leave.
That's it.
Yeah. That's a good one. Should we end on a high note and do a feat of strength or two? I have a couple.
Okay.
So, you know what? I could actually turn this feat of strength into a grievance, because here it is. Remember in September when Nebraska beat Colorado? Apparently, this became an unrepeatable, once in a lifetime effort. When Nebraska played so well that night, and they were so good and they were dominant over a team that ended up winning 9 games this year. They were pretty dang good. They had the Heisman winner on their team, and Nebraska played so well that night. And we were like, oh wow, maybe this is the step. they never played that well again. They never played even remotely close to that well again.
There were
They
moments against Wisconsin,
Yes.
but
Yes.
not a whole half or anything like that.
So it's a feat of strength wrapped up in a grievance still, which it was a heck of a night. That was a great win for them in a like, an emotion, especially the first half. The second half, that maybe there's a grievance in there too. But man, I can't. They never were able to find that spark or whatever it was that night ever again, which is sad.
Yeah, I would say my hope for Nebraska in 2025, and this is a bit of a grievance, as well as a wish for a feat of strength, is that they're able to repeat moments like that. That they're able to make that more the norm, where it's not just like this incredible sequence of events that you jump to a 28-0 lead. Like if we see that you can do it, then it should be something that comes out more often than the one time it did this year.
Okay. Well, should we just wrap this up then?
Do you want to, like, there were feats of strength that I
Yeah.
see you have mentioned here in our rundown about Nebraska basketball? Like,
Yeah,
hats
they went
off
to the
to
NCAA
Nebraska
tournament.
basketball. Yeah,
It's a
people
feat of
forget.
strength. Nebraska went to the NCAA basketball tournament for the first time in like 10 years. And they did it behind an undersized Japanese Steph Curry. And he was bombing threes from the half court line. America fell in love with Keisei Tominaga, and they went to the NCAA tournament. They lost, but they made the NCAA tournament. That is a feat of strength.
It is. It is. I think we're done. I think that we've gone through the grievances. We covered a couple of feats of strength. Hope that everybody has a great holiday here over the next 2 days. We're going to take Wednesday, take a break from this show, allow you to ponder everything that we had to say here today, or not. Enjoy the time with your family. We'll be back on Thursday to start talking more in depth about the Pinstripe Bowl, more about the portal, more about looking ahead to 2025, looking back at 2024, wherever the conversation goes. I'll be in New York on Friday. We'll be watching football all weekend. We'll move on to the new year and watch more football. It's all going to be very, very, very nice. So thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On Big Ten podcast with Craig. He puts the Big Ten first. He'll be talking about those 3 Big Ten quarterfinalists in the college football playoff as we get closer to New Year's. Find the Locked On Big Ten on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.